Okay, hello everyone. Okay, so the next program in chapter 4 is sum of numbers. Okay, so write a program that asks the user for a positive non-integer. Sorry. I'm sorry, I have a slight cough too, so sorry about that as well. So write a program that asks the user for a positive non-zero integer value. The program should use a loop to get the sum of all the integers from 1 up to the number entered. For example, if the user enters 50, the loop will find the sum of 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way to 50. Okay, so I'll just go ahead and start this one. All right, so I'll go ahead and create the class. Call it sum of numbers. Then I'll create the main method. Okay, so since we're going to be accepting inputs from the user, because the program says write a program that asks the user for a positive non-zero integer value. So since we're going to be accepting inputs from the user, I'm going to be using one of Java's features for accepting inputs. For this one, I'm going to be using the scanner. I can go ahead and use a G-option pane, but I'm just choosing to use a scanner. So I'm going to import the scanner so that this program can have access to the scanner class and be able to use the methods inside or everything in the scanner class. So to import it, it's going to be import java.util.scanner. Sorry about the cough. It's going to be java.util.scanner. So once we have a scanner, once we've imported the scanner class into this program, now we can go ahead and declare a scanner object. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to call the scanner object scanner. I'm going to create a new scanner and pass in the system.in method, which is basically going to accept byte info from the keyboard. It's going and connect it to the scanner object. Okay. All right. So now that we have the scanner, we can go ahead and declare some variables. Let's see. So the program says write a program that asks for a positive non-zero integer. Okay, so let's do that. Let's go ahead and do that. Let's ask the user for a positive non-zero integer. So I'm going to go ahead and create a system.out.println. Say, please enter a positive non-zero. Just put hyphen integer. Okay, so once this statement print, I'm going to call the scanner, because I'm going to be accepting an integer. I'm going to call the scanner.nextInt method, which is basically going to accept. It's going to allow the user to type in an integer in some kind of a text box, and it's going to convert whatever the user types into an integer, because everything that's returned from this scanner.nextInt is going to be returned as a string. So the nextInt method is going to go ahead and convert it to an integer, and when it does, we need a place to store it. So I'm going to create another variable up here. I'm going to call it user number. I say that's the number that's the number that the user is going to provide. So I'm going to create a variable. I'm going to call it user number. Oops, I forgot to put the type. So that number is going to be an integer. So int user number. Okay. So once we have declared, or once we declare this variable, we can go ahead and store what the user types here, the integer that the user types here, in this variable. So I'm going to I'm going to store what the user is going to type into the user number variable. Okay, so now we have the number, so we can go ahead and continue. All right, so the sorry for the cough. So the program says write a program that asks the user for a positive non-zero integer, positive and non-zero. So it doesn't have to be 0, but it has to be positive. So that means anything that's greater than 0. So if the user types in 0, we should tell the user that we want a positive non-zero number. We want a positive number, but we don't want 0. Okay, so we should find a way to, or we should create something in the program that should be able to tell the user that we want a positive non-zero integer. All right, so there are a couple of ways to do this. I'm going to use a while loop. Okay, I'm going to use a while loop, and I'm going to say this. I'm first going to declare user number. Okay, we haven't over here, when we declare the user number, we haven't asked the user anything. So I'm going to declare user number, and I'm going to initialize it to -1. Okay, I've already declared it. I'm going to initialize it. So I've initialized it to -1. So now user number is -1, and I'll explain why. So before we ask the user, right, I'm going to go ahead and create a while loop. I'm going to create a while loop. I'm going to create the structure. Okay, so I'm going to say while the user number is less than 1. Okay, anything less than 1, we don't want it. Okay, anything that's less than 1, I don't want it. So, or we don't want it. So while the user number is less than 1, do what's in this while block. Sorry, but okay. So what's going to happen is, if the user number is less than 1, keep on asking the user to type in a positive non-zero integer and accept the number. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and paste this code in here like this. Okay, so while the user number is less than 1, okay, go ahead and ask the user and then accept what the user types. This is a while loop, so it's going to keep looping. But the reason why I said this is -1 was so that at least for the first time the program can reach these statements in the while block. Because now if I set it to -1 and I say while user number is less than 1, of course -1 is less than 1. So this is going to run. So when it runs and it asks the user again, and the user types in a number, the loop is going to start again from here. It's going to start again from the top. So if, for example, if sorry, based on how this program is going right now, user number, well, based on what's happening right now, user number is -1. So it's going to ask, is -1 less than 1? Yes. So in that case, tell the user to please enter a positive non-zero integer. So the user is going to enter it. It's going to convert whatever the user types into an integer, and it's going to store it here. But this is a while loop. It's going to go back up again and ask. So if, for example, if the user types in the number 4, okay, now 4 is not less than 1. So it's going to come up here and ask again. What is 4 less than? Sorry, is 4 less than 1? 4 is not less than 1. So in this case, it's not going to run what's in here. It's going to come to the last. It's going to break out of the loop and continue anything that's down here. So it's going to exit out of the loop and continue anything that's down. So I hope I explained that well, and I didn't confuse anyone. Sorry, my cough has been bothering me for a couple of days now. So sorry about that. Okay, so now we can find a way. We can tell the user to keep entering the right number if the user doesn't enter the right number. Okay, so after the user has entered the right number, we need to now we will have the correct user number. Okay, so the program says that we should use a loop to get the number of all the integers, okay, from 1 up to the number entered. Right, for example, sorry, not to get the number. We should use a loop to get the sum of all the integers from 1 up to the number entered. So for example, if the user enters 50, the loop will find the number of the sum, not the number, the sum of 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way up to 50. So I'm going to go ahead and create a for loop here and say that I'm going to initialize a variable. I'm going to say for integer. Okay, for int, I'm going to call that number or that variable number, okay, and I'm going to initialize it to 1. So that's where I'm starting. I'm starting from 1 all the way up to the number the user types. So int number is equals to 1. Okay, I'm initializing and I'm saying for int number is equals to 1. Now as long as number, okay, is less than or equal to user number. Okay, so as long as 1 is less than or equal to whatever number the user has typed. Okay, so if the user typed in 4, as long as 1 is less than or equal to 4, go ahead and do what's in this block. Go ahead and do what's in this block. And after you are done, add 1 to number. I'm going to use plus, the postfix increment operator. Okay, I'm going to add 1 to number. You can also do number is equals to number plus 1. You can do that too, but I'm going to use a postfix increment operator, and I'm going to say number plus. Okay, so I'm going to initialize number to 1. As long as number is less than or equal to user number, do what's in the for loop, the for block, and after you're done, before you go back up and test this condition again, add 1 to number. Okay. So what I want to do is I want to go ahead and create another variable. I'm going to call it sum. Okay, now sum is going to be equal to sum itself, okay, plus, okay, I made a big mistake here. Now I'm going to loop through this a couple of times, so I don't want to declare it every time. Okay, so let me go ahead and declare this on top here and say int sum. Okay, and I'll just delete this. I don't have to declare it every time this loops. Okay, so I've created sum. Sum is going to be my accumulator. Okay, it's going to be the variable that's going to store the sum as this loop keeps going. Okay, so by the end of this loop, by the time this loop finishes running or finishes looping, we would have the sum from 1, the sum from 1 all the way up to, we'll have the sum of numbers from 1, okay, and whatever number the user typed. Okay, so int num is going to store the sum, and it's going to be our accumulator. So initially it's 0. I want to set the value to 0 so we can accumulate properly. So as long as 1 is less than whatever number the user typed, okay, we know that number is going to be a positive non-zero integer because we've checked here. So once you're looping through this, the first thing, sum is 0. Sum is going to be equal to sum plus number. Okay, so in the first instance, for example, sum is going to be 0. So sum is going to be equal to 0 plus 1. So now sum is going to be 1. And then this loop is going to go up. 1 is going to be added to number. It's going to check this condition again. Is 2 less than or equal to, for example, if the user typed in, let's say 4, is 2 less than or equal to 4. So now sum now is going to be equal to 1 is equal to 1 plus number, which is 2. Okay, so now sum is going to end up being 3. Okay, so I hope I explained it there. Okay, so the first time this program runs, sum is going to be 0, but when it does the addition for the first time, okay, it's going to be 0 plus 1, which is going to be 1. The next time it loops, it's going to be 1 is equal to 1 plus 2, which is going to be 3. Sum is going to be 3. The next time it loops, it's going to be 3 is equal to 3 plus 3, which is going to evaluate to 6. So sum is going to be 6. So I hope you get this. Sorry for the cough. Now, so again, this is not teaching Java, and I mentioned this in the first program, or I think the second program. And so for these videos, or for these programs, the goal is to try to solve the problem. So I'm assuming that at least you know the idea behind loops, but this is just to try to find a logic or a way of solving the problem. So if you already have an idea of how the concept works, we are just trying to figure out how to solve the problem. So it makes it a bit easier because you see one way of doing it and you can think through it and modify it or keep it the same and try to solve the questions. All right, so once we do this, it's going to loop through loop a couple of times, and it's going to that number is what number the user typed. So if the user typed in 5, this is going to loop 5 times, because it's going to start from 1, and as long as 1 is less than what the user typed, let's say 5, it's going to start from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If the user typed in 5, by the time it gets to 5 is less than or equal to 5, which is going to be user number here. So it's still going to run. But when it increments the next time and it comes to 6, number becomes 6. 6 is not less than or equal to 5. So in that case, it will terminate. I hope you get me there. So whatever the user types is how many times the loop is going to run, and it's going to go ahead and accumulate the numbers, from 1 all the way, numbers from 1 all the way to whatever number the user typed. So I hope I didn't confuse anyone there. So by the time this loop finishes, we will have the sum in the variable sum. So all we have to do is just display it after that, after the loop is done. So I'm going to go ahead and system.out.println and say the sum of numbers from 1 to, now I have how many or what the user typed. I have it in a variable. That's how many times the loop run. That's how many times the loop looped. Okay, so the sum of numbers from 1 to how many ever times the user, or how many ever times the loop run. Okay, I have that number stored in this variable, user number. Okay, if the user number is, let's say, 5, then it's going to be the sum of numbers from 1 to 5. Okay, if the user number is 5, okay, is sum. Okay, sum is going to hold our final sum. Okay, so this number is what the user typed. Okay, so what the user types is kind of like the max. Okay, so the sum of numbers from 1 all the way to what the user typed, okay, is what's going to be stored in sum. That's why I'm using user number in this string, so that it looks good. So we're done. So the next, I'm just going to go ahead and compile it. This program was a bit, the way maybe the way I explained it was a bit rough. I hope I explained it well. If you get it, that's great. If you don't, please feel free to comment in the comment section. But again, if you have a solid understanding of loops, this will be clear. It will be clear. But if it's not, please let me know. The most important thing is you have a solid understanding of loops, and you'll be fine. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and compile this program. We were down in chapter 3, so I'm going to go ahead and create another folder for chapter 4, and I'm going to call it sum of numbers, and I'll create another folder for this program, which is sum of numbers. So and I'll save it here. Okay, so we have a couple of errors. I forgot to terminate this line, so I'll terminate it, compile it again, and it compiled well. So I'm going to run it. First, it says, please enter a positive non-zero integer. So I'm going to try a negative number and see what happens. Sorry for my cough, okay? I'm really sorry. I'm going to enter a negative number, -1, and hit enter. And it says, please enter a positive non-zero integer, because -1 is not a positive non-zero integer. I'm going to enter -3. See, because -3 is not a positive non-zero integer. I'm going to enter 0 and hit enter, and it says, please enter a positive non-zero integer, because 0 is not a positive non-zero, because it says non-zero. That means no zeros are allowed. But if I enter 1, oh no, let me enter a good number. If I enter, let's say 3, and hit enter, it says the sum of numbers from 1 to 3 is 6. Okay, so it's, I'll have a calculator here. So let's say 1 plus 2 is equal to 3, and then 3 plus 3 is equal to 6. Okay, so that's what it's doing. Okay, so if we have 1, 2, 3, we're adding 1 to 2, and that gives us 3. And then we're adding the total of 1 and 2 to 3, so that gives us 6. Okay, all right. So let me go ahead and test one more value, or one more number. I'm going to enter 7, and it says the sum of numbers from 1 to 7 is 28. I hope that's correct. Anyway, if you have any questions, please comment down below in the comment section. If you don't understand anything, please comment down below, and I'll do everything to explain and respond to them. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time with the next program. Okay, bye bye.